Hello, everyone. This is Terry Roberts with DMAI, and welcome to another empowering webinar. It's really our pleasure today to be here to talk about working inclusively with the multiple partners you choose to bring to the table. And before we get started, I would like to just take the opportunity to thank our sponsor, ePro Meeting Apps. And we look forward to talking with Tommy Hart again with ePro at the end of this webinar. And today I would like to introduce you to our panelists. First, Lancy Cowan. She is the Senior Director and Meeting Operations person for the Association of Research in Vision and Ophthalmology. And Lancy has been an association planner since 1999. She is currently, as I said, the Senior Director of her department, where she oversees all aspects of their annual meeting, which draws more than 12,000 attendees, 7,000 abstracts submissions, and multiple in conjunction with events. So in addition to this, she also is involved in a lot of related smaller organizational meetings. And Lancy says that her favorite challenges are housing block management and win-win contract negotiations. And Lancy, that's pretty interesting because most people don't look at their challenges as their favorite thing. So I think that speaks to your optimism. And I would also like to welcome, and I know that you all will enjoy hearing from Marco Blumendahl. Marco is the Senior Vice President and Convention Sales and Services person for Visit Seattle. And Marco really leads his team there in Seattle and with expertise, and he's responsible for the partnerships with the Washington State Convention Center. And he's also responsible for the day-to-day direction and sales productivity of his team. Since 2007, Marco has been there, and he has also been the director of Experience Columbus and leading a satellite office in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. Prior to that, he was the national sales executive with the Orange County Orlando Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I think that this is a topic that many are interested in because planning partners and people to bring to the table and good connective partnerships are certainly a hot topic today. And many planners have told us at DMAI through our interviews, through our surveys, through our blog posts that their biggest pain point is often finding the right location, budget, space, whatever it is for their meeting. And you would think even in this world of mass information with all that you have at your fingertips at the internet, that you still wouldn't need a way to filter down and narrow your selection. But ultimately, you do sort of need that advice on how to make your RFP destination specific, some ways to send and track down all those hotel responses to get that lay of the land and coordinating logistics of your site inspection. And, you know, all that's kind of going on before you've even booked your meeting. And then you look at maybe the additional service and marketing expertise that you need to bring to the table for a meeting's success, and it's no wonder that you really need some partners in this. So I think that there is a very unique set of benefits that each type of partner, whether that's a GSO or an NSO from a national hotel company, whether it's a third-party planner, or whether it's a convention and visitors bureau destination rep that assists you. And I think that there's an ongoing kind of frustration on, well, you know, does it become a wrestling match with who gets credit or who does what when I work with multiple partners. And so we're going to address some of those issues along with, you know, how does a planner really exercise control and create, you know, transparency between the partners that you choose. And I know that both Lancy and Marco have some interesting perspectives on that, if you will. So I'd like to start really by asking Lancy, or I'm sorry, by asking Marco, if I could ask him to start, by reviewing what each type of partner really brings to the planning and execution of the meeting. So Marco, can I ask you to kind of start with reviewing the partners available?
Absolutely, absolutely. And first of all, in this component, and for all three or any partners for that matter that planners choose to work with, the client, the meeting planner, should come first in any of these components. And then using your partners from a CVB, a Convention and Visitors Bureau, now most of them transitioning into a DMO, a Destination Marketing Organization, we are here to promote the destination. So for the planners out there, once you start looking at certain regions of the country, the DMOs are there to streamline the process, getting out there, getting proposals, bids, work with all the local partners involved to get the best solution for the meeting planners. Now, I know there's some confusion for those working with CVBs that not all are kind of structured the same, and some are member, some are non-member, but I think throughout this presentation we learned that with the right communication up front, that shouldn't really matter what some of the nuances are. Then working with your NSO or GSO, they are there to really represent their brands. And as meetings go across the country, those brands are represented in all those destinations. So having that relationship could be key when it comes to contracting, going multi-year, issues in certain properties, brand loyalty within the attendees that you represent. And then the independent third-party planners, again, offering a variety of meeting management. And in most of my examples today, really want to focus on the site selection component that they provide. And I know Lancy will follow up here with some additional management opportunities that they give, whether it's housing or helping with negotiations. But again, the key here is that all of these parties, when working together, they're working on behalf of the meeting planner to create the best opportunity for them.
And Marco, I know many planners have even certain brand loyalties because of points or award systems that their companies use in many ways. I was in a meeting with a McDonald's planner recently, and they use the points from their brands to support their Ronald McDonald Foundation.
That's great, yeah. No, and this is why that information is just key, knowing that if that is of importance to a meeting planner and their program, to therefore have the NSO collaborate with the destination that they're interested in to make sure that those opportunities are there.
And that it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive.
Absolutely.
Nancy, anything to add there?
I would just say, and we can talk about this a little bit in a minute, but depending on the type of meeting you're sourcing, what you use each party for might be slightly different. If you're doing a large citywide meeting, you might start with one and then include the others a little bit later in the process. If you're doing multiple small meetings, you might start with a different partner. It's just, you really have to pay attention to what your meeting needs are. There's no sort of one-size-fits-all model for how to make this work.
Absolutely, and that's a good point, that really there isn't a one-size-fits-all model. That's a great point. So I'd really like to move on, Lancy, first by asking you to speak on the value and success you've had in working with multiple planning partners in creating, collaboration and cohesion for your meeting.
Well, basically, like I said, we have a citywide meeting. So we use all three parties. We generally start with in this case, we start with the CVB or the DMO, and they do the legwork, while we also notify our national sales offices to let them know what we're doing, because there are times when I'll be working on sourcing multiple citywides at once. And so it's helpful to know if there's any programs with the brands that are in different destinations that would give me value if I booked those hotels, or if I was leaning towards one destination versus another and there was a presence with a brand that we could get some value for. They each bring something different to the table for me, and just sort of from a citywide perspective, really the CVB is the one-stop shop for the initial information, the initial proposal, will my meeting fit. For me, the national sales offices, I typically use those for troubleshooting and for value adds at the beginning of the process and then all the way through. And then we use a third party only for logistical support once we get the meeting booked. So they come in 6 to 9 months before the next meeting and help us on the ground. It helps me from having to hire another staff person. If we had multiple small meetings, we have maybe 5 or 6 that we're working on at any given time maximum, but there's probably some planners on the call that have many 20, 30 meetings at a time. That's where using a third party for sourcing would probably be of more value. For my particular meeting that I mostly focus on for the annual meeting, I think we have enough unique needs. We bring enough leverage ourselves that we don't work with a third party for sourcing, but we do find them valuable for contract help once we get started. Just also on the GSOs, the National Sales Offices, we bringing those in, the value adds for small meetings as well. If you have a series of small meetings, you'll definitely want to use them as well as the CVBs to just get a range of information.
That's great. Kind of a good overall look at, how you're using different parties for different things. Marco, one of the things Lancy brought up is about, a single hotel meeting. And I want to make sure, I know you have some comments, but I also want to make sure that you address that many planners think, well, if I have a single hotel meeting, the CVB isn't interested in working with me. They only are interested in working with citywide planners. So maybe your thoughts about what Lancy said and then as well.
No, absolutely. And Lancy, thank you for bringing that up, because that is absolutely a misconception that CVBs are only there for the larger citywide programs. Most CVBs are absolutely there, regardless if it's a 10-person meeting that you need assistance with and looking at the destination up to full citywides. We're here to assist. And our services, again, our key area, I think, in helping is being that time saver. Whether it's the planner directly or going through a third-party person, instead of going through the internet or the yellow pages and looking for what hotels are in the destination, it's basically a one-stop shop to a CVB person to say, here I have a potential program that could look at that part of the country or that destination specific. And we will then go out on your behalf to go out there, get the best opportunities, and again, whether that's a citywide or just a self-contained in-house program, that's what we're here for to do. And most of our services are absolutely complementary. And I think that's a key component as well that maybe not everybody realizes.
And Terry and Marco, if I can just also comment, it's really important that the planner sets the tone for what they need and to not be shy about saying what their needs are, because the partners, it's hard for them to help if a program is 90% planned and all of a sudden there's a need. So that's on the planner really to have the checklist of what things I need and who can fulfill those needs.
And Marco, I wondered if you would comment, because I know, when the planner thinks about collaborating with multiple parties, that, it seems pretty appealing. But I was wondering if maybe you could kind of tell me how the multiple parties feel about working with each other and kind of what goes on behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's absolutely a part of our industry right now that, of course, we offer multiple channels for lead sourcing. And behind the scenes, yeah, that causes a little bit of a challenge, and not as much from a lack of collaboration, but more of a duplication of effort. And that's something that we as an industry really have to take a good look at and how we can streamline that better. Because again, as I said in my original comment, it is all about you, the planner, the client, the program that you have that could come to the destination or could come to an individual hotel. And therefore the collaboration is key in making that happen so you get the best possible options for you to represent to your leadership. The other behind the scenes, and again, I want to emphasize it's behind the scenes, so it's definitely not something that is slowing the process down for the client or something that the meeting planner should worry about. But part of that also has to do with how the CVBs, what our reporting duties are. And I'll elaborate on that a little bit. For example, since leads are being sourced through multiple channels, we as a CVB, our main role is to represent an entire destination. So therefore, we want to report out to stakeholders, city leaders, about what the impact is of this wonderful meetings industry to the destination. So sometimes it's hard when we work with our local partners when we say, hey, I know that we worked on bringing XYZ program to your property. would you mind sharing me the details of the final contract so we can report that out to city stakeholders of what the total impact was of the destination. And sometimes you run into a little bit of a, well, but I got the lead through this channel, so not necessarily want to share information. And again, that's where Lancy comment is so key with right up front, where all the partners realize who collaborates together, then that's not an issue at all.
And Marco, you said, oh, I'm sorry, Lancy, but I was just going to say, I think he kind of did a nice segue to our next point, which is, you know, how do you, when you work with multiple partners as a planner, you know, is it even worth it to have to manage their interface and working on your behalf? And so I know it's not the planner's job to manage duplication of effort, but it can become a source of you know, aggravation for the planner. So what can planners do to really reduce that duplication of efforts up front, Lancy? And then ask Marco to kind of talk to how can the planners, their partners, assist with that. So go ahead, Lancy. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just getting so excited to say the one piece that Marco makes this whole thing sound really easy, like, oh, just, you know, we'll take care of it for you, which absolutely in Seattle and in lots of other cities they do. But one thing as a planner, I have many years of experience at this point, but when I was new to this, one of the things that helped me was I was never afraid to ask someone at the CVB I'm working with, or ask someone at my national sales office, you know, can you do this for me, or is that more appropriate? Because sometimes it is hard to figure out who does what, and planners don't set out to cause duplication for people, which can be frustration for if you have two people doing the same thing. And the issue of credit, you know, how do you ask your national sales, will you still get credit if I source this here? What's the best to come out with a win-win for everybody? And I think that's probably the key, and it goes into my philosophy is I have a no surprises philosophy. I try to be really upfront, and I think it is definitely worth it because there are things you can benefit from all of these parties that you might not know about, so it's worth it to try to work with all of them.
Good point.
And Lancy, you're absolutely right with regard to the win-win and what have you. And again, that's why I made that first statement. We are in this industry, in this wonderful hospitality industry, had to work with the client. Client is therefore first. They have a need of a program, and everybody that the client chooses to work with to enhance their program or the chances for better negotiations in their program, everybody that they choose to work with should work together, again, for the benefit of you, the meeting planner. And again, therefore, these wonderful options are now available to get the best information and behind-the-scenes information. So let us all work for you, and in the end, then, therefore, everybody wins. If you book that hotel chain, the NSO, GSO wins. If that hotel chain happens to be in the destination of the CVB person, you win, then they win. And if you have a fantastic meeting, you win. And that's what we're all in this great industry for.
Yeah, and, you know, I think, again, Lance, you just bring up such a good point about transparency. And we had talked about this offline, but just that I think that planners sometimes feel that holding things close to the vest, like not showing all their cards, puts them in a stronger position. Maybe they'll get more. Maybe they'll have a stronger edge. And ultimately, sometimes the end result is just the opposite. So maybe kind of what does make it work? What are the key components if you value your GSO relationship, if you want to work with a third-party planner, if you want destination services and expertise, and you want to bring all these people to the table, then what are the key components?
I would say it really is about transparency. I have found that not being upfront, you might end up with the same result in the end because everyone values your business. But I believe that giving a list up front, making each partner aware of the fact that others are working on your program. Don't be shy about the fact that you have a third party that works on a piece and they might be contacting. Make sure they know. Make sure your hotel partners and your CVB know to what extent your third party is authorized to speak for you. Give them that information. You know, I don't think there's ever a situation where too much information would be a problem in this case. I would also say having that partnership from the beginning and being clear is going to benefit you more in the end, because in this industry it's all about relationships, and you do want to be friendly with everyone, you want to have good relationships, and you don't want to cause work for someone that might create resentment because you're keeping back something that you think you can use as a negotiation tool later. I've had many cocktail party conversations with my planner friends about this topic, and there are people that would vehemently disagree with that, but I have found that process is successful, and I also, because I'm up front, I can later, if I need something later, I can say, hey, you know, I didn't know I needed this, or something's come up, and they're more willing to work with me than if I, you know, every 3 days say, oh, and I also need this, and I also need this, and I also need 63 comps, or that sort of thing.
Good point. And Marco, I wonder if you would address something that sort of triggered for me when Lancy was talking. We're going to take some questions here in a few minutes, but you know, when she made the point about you know, asking for things up front, I know one of the things that gets in the way, and many planners may not understand the funding of destination marketing organizations, and that your services are free to planners because they've already been paid for by those vested in tourism in the industry. But many times planners may not involve CVBs from the start, but then they come back to you after the meeting is booked asking for services. But yet your service dollars are funded on the meetings you book. So it gets complicated, and I just wondered if you would like to sort of comment on how your services are funded and how planners can take full advantage, but that letting you know from the beginning is a crucial part of your funding being appropriated going forward.
No, absolutely, and again, that is one of our challenges in our industry, that we have all these nuances, but I guess they work for whatever channel you work with. For us, most of the CVBs out there are structured very similar, meaning that they provide free services, where the majority of their funding comes in from the hotel tax that is being paid with the meetings that are coming to their destination. So sometimes it can become challenging when either clients directly or working through third parties, where third parties might represent the planner directly within a destination and go directly with a hotel, but then a site is being scheduled, and then they contact the CVB to say, hey, I would like you to assist with flights or transportation, and then it becomes very hard for several CVBs out there to justify spending money in that assistance when they weren't part of the process from the beginning. So that is absolutely key, and I think that is also part with Lancy's point of, if I want the best proposals out there that can make my meeting successful, getting honest and upfront right from the get-go on my needs, and who the partners are involved, so therefore we can work on that collaboration better. In the end, it just ends up being a better result for the meeting planner.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of services that are made available free to planners that are supported through GSO, NSO, CVB, all these acronym programs, but upfront gets you the most, I think, is loud and clear. So I'd just like to take a moment to say that if we do have planners online who are not familiar with how CVBs work and they want to get in contact with them, that they can find us at DMAI's planner portal, which is empowerMINT.com, where they can be able to connect with multiple destinations simultaneously, sort of like a national sales offices for CVBs. And, you know, there's over 880 plus Marcos out there looking forward to working with you. So now I'd like to take some questions. I know we have some questions on the board, and with regard to CMP credit, which is always an important question, again, to let you know that you will gain 30 minutes under the domain project management for your participation today. And before we take those questions, I would like to thank our partner and our sponsor, which is ePro Meetings app. They sponsor our webinar each month, and Tommy Hart from ePro is on with us. Hi, Tommy.
Hi, Terry. How are you doing today?
I'm good, and I just want to ask you, as our partner, to just take a minute, if you would, to educate the planners online about how meeting apps, I don't think anyone goes anywhere without an app these days, and how meeting apps especially might be able to help them. And then I will go to Elaine and Joy to field some questions from our panelists at the end of our half hour here.
Well, thank you so much, Terry, and the whole team at DMAI for the opportunity, and thank you to both the presenters, Marco and Lancy. I know that I've learned a whole lot, and it definitely helps for my CMP certification as well, so thank you to you both. ePro Meeting Apps is one of the industry leaders in native custom mobile apps that are cross-platform for BlackBerry, iPhone, Android, and Windows Mobile, so that way you can get all of your content for your meeting regarding either location, and we work with CVB DMOs all over to make sure that all of their partners are represented as well. So we try to make it as we are a partner to ensure the success of your meeting through a digital extension, through a mobile app. So as I'm sure most of you know, that mobile apps are everywhere, and if you have any questions or you want to learn more, you just feel free to contact us and we'll take care of you. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tommy, for that. All right, Elaine, if you would maybe field some questions. I know that I've seen quite a few questions popping up on the question board, so either for Lancy or Marco. Elaine, if you could feed a few.
Certainly. Thank you, Terry. Yes, actually, this might be more for Marco, pertaining to, the role of a member versus non-member CVBs, Marco, and how, if we hear about that terminology, what the difference is, and if people send, will their lead RFP only go to, say, member hotels, and then they might be interested in hearing from other hotels that are not members. So how does that happen? How does CVBs represent or deal with that?
Absolutely. No, it's absolutely true that most CVBs currently have a model that, in addition to the BEDTEX funding that I mentioned earlier, they also might have, in addition, a membership model where partners in the community, hotels, restaurants, service providers join the CVB as a partner member, and therefore the CVB will represent them. Through many years in conversations with meeting planners, this is sometimes a great benefit because it could potentially mean that meeting planners come say, hey, Marco, I would like you to look at Seattle at these and these and these hotels. And then by really looking at the RFP, might come up with some additional suggestions, either independent hotels that the planner might not have been aware of, or other resorts that are maybe not in the city limits, for example. So oftentimes that is a great benefit in then adding additional hotel options. But I know planners over the years have also found that it could be working limiting, meaning that, hey, I would like to have you source these and these properties or offsite venues or whatever it might be, where a CVB might say, ooh, I can't do that because they don't pay a membership fee. And this is something that our industry is taking a good look at. I know there are several DMOs out there that have kind of changing that model. We at Visit Seattle are looking at that right now and kind of transitioning from a membership model to what we call a partnership model. Because again, it is our role as the CVB to promote the entire destination. And when planners come looking at us for our expertise on the destination, we should be able to provide them with every option that is there, whether they pay a membership due or not. But right now, that is probably one of the great questions planner could potentially ask in the initial collaboration with a CVB to say, hey, just FYI, tell me a little bit of how you're structured. Is my lead going to go to all your members? And this is something that is also kind of out there, which is absolutely fading out, so to speak, that there were CVBs out there that were mandated to send all their leads out to their entire membership base. But Elaine and Terry can probably jump in that number is dwindling fast because, again, we are here as a service provider to you, and that is not providing you any service.
Yeah, Marco, I think that's interesting. And I kind of like to, although it's sort of dirty laundry, I think I'd like to bring it right out of the closet. Lancy, I'd love for you to weigh in here too. But and there's actually a CVB on the line that said, how do we overcome some past misperceptions or some past transgressions where planners may have not had a successful experience because a CVB sent out leads to all members? And I would tell you that that is an archaic practice. It is a practice that is not supported by DMAI and its members at large. And I think that one of the most important things, as Lancey said, is to ask the question up front and to specify specifically what you do want and what you don't want. Lancey, your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that's really important. Also, Terry, I think that does point out on the planner side a frustration in the hesitancy perhaps to go to CVBs and to national sales offices, because how many people do you want to hear from on a particular lead? I mean, yeah, you feel like the belle of the ball because everybody wants your meeting, but it becomes a difficult mass of information to file through. So I think that's really important. Also, one of the benefits I find in working with a CVB directly and being very clear is that they can compile the information for me. So in some cases, I mean, usually I'm dealing with a citywide meeting, but in some cases it wouldn't bother me if they went out. I might say to them, go out to everyone, but only give me the people that meet these criteria, and sort of have them do the first level of work for you. I mean, that can be happen in some situations. Same thing with the national sales offices. You can have them do a first cut. But again, communication and setting expectations at the beginning is critical.
Lancey, okay, so here's a question that I think is really interesting. A planner who has typed in that they had a less than positive experience with the CVB in the past in a site search process, that they felt that many hotels who responded came in without thought and didn't provide complete proposals, and that the planner got sort of overwhelmed in the process and then moved to a site selection company to help them deal with this. So Marco, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think, again, this comes from sometimes planners not getting in the driver's seat of the bus and saying, I want to request that this lead, that the responses be aggregated or that the responses be held until everyone has responded. You know, because some CVBs have that policy. They don't respond until all the leads have come in. And then other planners like all the hotels to come direct to them and not have the CVB hold responses. But again, it's about asking and controlling the way you want to get the information, as opposed to just sort of making the request and then letting it come however it comes. Would you agree with that, Marco?
Absolutely. However, I do want to, as the comment came from one of my peers, absolutely, as a CVB, we also have that responsibility when we do get a planner on the phone and talk about how we can assist them, that we let them know how we are structured, and that we ask them the question, would you like us to collect the information for you? Is it okay if the hotel sent their proposals directly to you? Again, to Lancey's point earlier, some people are very familiar in using CVBs and are using them all across the country, which is great. Some maybe planners that are just starting out in their career, they might not have had that opportunity yet, or if they did, they might have had an opportunity that wasn't that great. So it is also our responsibility to let them know how we can help them, because in the end, that's what we're here for. Not necessarily selling the destination, but to bring that right planner proponent to the destination and create that win-win. That is when we are all successful.
Yeah, it's such a good point, Marco, and I think that, again, not to just beat this dead horse, but it's all about that transparency at the beginning of saying, here's what I need, here's how I'd like it, here's what we can do. And you know what? There are some planners, Lancey, and I know you would agree with this, that there are some planners that want to keep complete control. They want to hear from hotels directly. They want to feed their own questions. They don't want someone in the middle. And then there are other planners who prefer that everything be kept at bay. And that both are for the having. You can have it either way.
Absolutely, and I think you just have to, it's a personal preference, also what the needs of your organization are. I think you can have a hybrid model. I mean, I have a hybrid model with that. Once I reach a contracting stage, unless there's a problem, I'm dealing directly with the hotel, not the national sales. I mean, it's very nuanced, and I think this is a very difficult terrain to kind of navigate, but everybody wants to help. And the CVBs, I found, it could be, I have a pretty large meeting too, so I have a good relationship with lots of different CVB reps across the country, and I don't think it's out of the ordinary for anyone to pick up a phone and call a CVB salesperson and just ask questions. Use them as a resource. I mean, they kind of know the lay of the land in their area. They're a good first contact for a particular region. One thing I know we talked about when we were preparing this webinars is for the planners, one of the challenges is, well, I know my board or my whoever wants a meeting in the East Coast. You know, do I go out to everyone and then I'm inundated? It really is challenging. So you can start with one or the other, or you can choose to use a third-party site selection company if that works best for you. But you want to make sure that every party is eventually in the loop at the appropriate time so that no one's left out. So if you're looking, you want an East Coast meeting, once you figure out which city you're going to go to for whatever reason, then you definitely let the CVB know. It is a fine line to kind of walk, to not have a million people coming after you, and then you get overwhelmed. I mean, that happens very, very easily.
Right. I really appreciate, we have had so many people stay on through the entire question segment, so that tells me that we did have good engagement and that people were really interested. And again, we hope you'll keep in touch with us. Lancey, we thank you for your peer-to-peer expertise here, and Marco for representing our industry well, and Tommy for your continued partnership. And if you'd like to stay in touch with us, I'll give you some opportunities to express opinions and to contact us directly. But I'd like to just point out this resource, because you can find all of our recorded webinars at blog.empowerMINT.com, but there's also great articles there about, how to do a key site inspection. There's great articles there about how to source a destination. So, there are so many resources available to planners, and I think Marco had said it best, that all of us in the hospitality industry, it's our aim to serve you well and to give you everything that we can to make your meeting a success in whatever destination you're holding it in. So to all our partners out there, our third-party planner partners, our GSO and hotel partners, our CVB partners, and probably most importantly, our planning partners, thank you for joining us for our Empowering webinar this month. We hope to see you again in October, same time frame. And next month we'll be talking about sporting events and how sports planners and event planners can take advantage of resources and grants and funds and all kinds of things available to them. So Lance, Marco, thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.